Short-term strategies always leads to mistake, and it doesn't allow you to differentiate. If you don't differentiate, you just blend in with everyone else.
I want to find something completely different that they're not doing, that I can do to make myself stand out ahead of them.
Yes, that's what I think that is going to be the future of search.
We have an incredible guest with us today. She's the founder of the Freelance Coalition for Developing Countries, the senior content marketing manager at Moz, and a very active public speaker. She's a force in the marketing world, known for her sharp insights and no-nonsense approach to SEO, which has led to a massive following on social media. Please give a warm welcome to the one and only Chima.
Thank you so much for having me and for that awesome intro.
I was telling Mark about how excited I was for this episode because we usually speak to people who have made their living in the legal industry, and then we try and apply things that happen outside the legal world to the legal industry. And now we get to speak to possibly the expert on content marketing and how to apply that to the legal space. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us.
Of course, this is going to be fun.
So a lot of what you've written about, at least recently, and for those of you that don't know, Chima runs the blog on Moz and contributes consistently there. So check out and follow her blog posts. I read her 3 most recent posts, and we use that to kind of shape the way that we're going to talk about branding in the legal space. Everybody in the legal space wants to know, what should I do with my marketing? From an SEO to AI to all things digital to traditional media, law firms have invested heavily in their brands offline and have done so online over the past decade or so. How can we show law firms that branding assists SEO and AI visibility?
I think there's a lot of data out there right now. Even a few months ago, I published something on the Moz blog where we basically said that LLMs use known brands with high domain authority when they are looking for sources for retrieval. And a lot of those brands are big media websites, sites like BuzzFeed, Hearst, Bustle, a lot of the Zip Davis websites, all of those sites. So it's basically that if you are doing branding right, if you're getting third-party reviews, you are showing up in the training data sets that these LLMs like to cite, then that is going to correlate in probably more branded searches, more visibility on traditional SERPs, and more mentions on AI and LLM because they pull from known sources. And by known sources, I mean high DA authoritative websites when they are generating answers. So yes to SEO, helping you get more visibility in LLMs, but also yes to SEO, helping you get more visibility in traditional search engines.
How would you recommend showing that to a firm when their impressions are going up, as what we're seeing in Search Console, but their clicks are going down? How do you show them that their brand is showing up and that actually is having an impact downstream in their funnel? Is it turning into leads? Is it turning into cases just because they're showing up more?
I think that's a very good question. And you hear me say this a lot, but in a way, the fact that we're even asking this question, I blame SEOs in a way because we are the ones that trained C-suits and decision makers to believe that traffic is the ultimate metric, right? If we did not train them to think like that, you would not be asking this question right now. You're asking this question because this is the problem that we are seeing for many C-suits, even from us. Many of our clients are asking this same question. Why are my clicks down and my impressions are up? And you're telling me that that's not something to be worried about. The truth is that it has to tie back to revenue. That is what they should be thinking about. If traffic is down, but we are still generating businesses, we are still getting brand awareness, we are still getting leads coming through the pipeline, then that's all that should matter. If you notice that business is down and traffic is down, then that is your cue to start asking yourself, is my website even optimized to convert what is coming through? Traffic was a very good mirror for many people not to do the work. Something would eventually sift through to leads if you got a high enough traffic number. But now with declining clicks, you actually have to do the work for CRO. It's not just SEO anymore. It's SEO and CRO. Is your website optimized for conversion? When people come into your site, what is the page that they land on the most? Is that page optimized to lead them through a conversion pathway that leads to them becoming a lead? If you ask a random person to go through your website from the point of entry on Google to finding your contact page, is that process easy? If it's not, then you need to optimize that. You also have to look at it in the terms of what are you even ranking for that is driving traffic? We talk a lot about traffic, but nobody really talks about the cost of that traffic. Not all traffic is good traffic, and traffic is also expensive because there is the cost of hosting, there is all this cost associated with having a big content library. So you have to understand all of this traffic we're getting, how much of it is actually going towards commercial and transactional keywords? Are there even gaps down there that we haven't optimized for? What are our competitors doing to drive revenue in terms of organic that we can replicate? Those are the things that we need to be doing more of. And if we're doing that, it will definitely lead to the metrics that matter for the C-suites. And that makes it easier to get buy-in and to show the value of SEO, not impressions are up and clicks are down. That is the wrong thing that usually happens, as I said, as a result of you training them to see traffic as the end goal.
Oh, don't point at me saying you. That felt very pointed. It's funny. One of the first conversations we have with a lot of our prospects or new clients is we frame them and like reteach them that how we measure performance and our strategies are not optimized towards like rankings and traffic. Those are leading indicators, which are important, but like leads and signed cases for us is what we measure off of for success. And it can be very deceiving because they're like, traffic's not going up. Or sometimes even after migration, traffic will go down because they'll have a ton of blog content that was irrelevant, bringing in a ton of traffic that wasn't really topically relevant or driving potential leads that we just chopped from the site on migration. So traffic drops and they're like, what's going on? Be like, you're getting better traffic to the people that are actually going to be leads that are convert versus all this garbage clicks that are irrelevant to anything that might be your target audience.
Exactly that, Mark.
I also think that part of the reason that our industry has led on that, it's an easy metric to report on when you're not doing very good work, to show that you're doing something with someone who's uneducated in SEO marketing.
Yes, exactly. Because I've worked on websites where the goal was to drive like 1 million clicks to the websites.
Well, some people, when they're doing display advertising, that's a little different, but most clients aren't like that.
Yeah, I think when you just make that your end goal, it allows you to not focus on the things that actually matter for a business. And again, who did all of that? It's SEOs, you know?
It's all our fault.
Yeah.
I was reading a post by someone else in our space last week. They were touting that on a monthly basis, they're producing almost 100 pages of content for each of their clients in the legal space.
I saw that post today.
Okay, so Mark and I spoke about that.
They said that almost 100 pages and they showed a graph of traffic increasing significantly. And I was like, this shows nothing.
Yeah, but it was coming from a thought leader in our space, and we're here having a conversation about the opposite. My question to you is not about that. My question to you is, we know, the people on this call, right? Mark, myself, Chima, you know that that is wrong. We are telling you, anyone who's listening, that that is wrong, and you should not use the number of pages created or traffic as a metric that you are basing off your business decisions. However, there are other people who are running law firms and who are marketing leaders at law firms who are making decisions based off of this misinformation. How do we educate them that the things that they are seeing surrounding traffic, whether it's growing or declining or surrounding number of pages, are the wrong things to look at?
I think, once again, it all comes back to what I just said before, which is why? That's what I always want to ask them when they say, oh, our competitors are doing X. Why are we not doing X? I'm going to ask you, why do you want to do what they're doing? You know, if you always have your goals for SEO front and center, what are those goals? Is it to drive leads? Is it to drive brand awareness? Is it to do XXX? And you use those goals to measure against what the competitors are doing. Does it align? You don't want to just create the same thing they are doing, because then you're just repeating and that doesn't allow you to stand out. You want to do the stuff they are doing that aligns with your goals for SEO. And you also do not want to be reactive. if you're always going to be reactive, then you're always just going to be creating short-term strategies. Short-term strategies always leads to mistake, and it doesn't allow you to differentiate. If you don't differentiate, you just blend in with everyone else. What you want to be doing instead is, like I said, keeping those goals front of mind, making sure that the stuff that you are, I don't want to say copying, but the stuff that you are being inspired from with competitors aligns with your own goals. But more importantly, figuring out how you can create content that leads to revenue generating activities versus just creating 80 pieces of blog posts or trying to drive 100K traffic to your website. Again, I always start with why. Why do you want 100,000 people visiting your website? Why do you want to do this exact thing that they are doing? If you ask them that question, why, you're going to see the client just looks confounded. They don't really have an answer. They just want to copy because of FOMO. It's the fear of missing out. It's the fear that if we're not doing that, then we're not being seen as serious. But serious to whom? The end user or the person who you're trying to attract actually doesn't really care about that. They want it to be easy for them to find you for the things that they're searching for when they're looking for you. If your competitors are doing something else that doesn't align with that, then you need to not focus on them, but keep those SEO goals front of mind and weigh every decision you make against those goals. Always.
Let's talk about how to create that content. Informational content has somewhat been commoditized, right? With AI overviews, with LLMs giving people answers, very simply without citations sometimes. What are the right ways and the actionable takeaways that those listening can say, these are the things that I should be doing to create really good informational content for my users that will meet those business goals?
There has been a lot of debate, should we stop creating informational content since it's eating into clicks? The answer for me is that you should not stop creating informational content, because for legal brands, in my opinion, people are still typing informational queries. They are still asking, what should I do if I've been hit by a car? Or what should I do if I sleep in a supermarket, or things like that? All of the queries that would lead them to find you are mostly informational, if we're being honest. What you need to do instead is give more than your competitors. So let's say, for example, somebody is looking for a keyword, right? And everybody else literally has the same type of content on page 1. What if you go an extra mile and you give them a downloadable checklist that says what to do in the first 24 hours after a car accident? And it's just a checklist of boom, 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 boom. And you attach it to the blog post. That is something that they can quickly use to make a decision. What if you give them something that says a checklist on steps to take before speaking to an insurance adjuster? Think about all the common questions that you usually have or usually get from people on the first call that they jump on with you. And you build like a yes or no guide. Can I sue after sleeping in the supermarket? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points. No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That kind of makes it easier for them to make a decision, because not everybody who is researching is ready to speak to a lawyer. They might find that, I'm not ready for that yet. They're trying to find clues to make that decision. So if you provide something extra that makes the content you're giving them actionable, one, you are doing better than your competitors on the SERPs, and that makes you more helpful. That makes the person who is reading that content more likely to take action. 2, you are also making them more lead ready, whereby by the time they jump on this call with you, they are coming in more informed. They are coming in feeling more confident that they have a case, and you're getting more right fit leads versus doing like maybe 30, 40 calls that are not relevant. This is kind of like a qualifier, but it's also as a way of you giving something extra. So back to the question, you should be creating informational content, but you should be giving something more with the informational content that you create that makes your content actionable and allows you to stand out from all of the sameness that is on the SERP.
Follow-up question to that too. So in your opinion, we've all seen it happen before. What do you do when, you're working on a page and you see a page, let's call it a garbage piece of content, ranking above you that is not very good?
Oh gosh. Oh my God.
What is your thought process do you go through when going through this? Because we've all lived through it where we're like, this doesn't make sense. You want to read through the screen and like strangle Google.
I literally wrote about this on the post I did on Moz. I'm just like pissed every time I see that, because I think there was a project I was working on recently, and maybe half of the pages that were ranking for all the keywords I was looking at were websites that had no business writing that content, which means that they are not incentivized to provide value. And if it's now a high domain authority website that has like a lot of links, a lot of credibility, your chances of even outranking them, no matter how good your content is, from what I've seen, is always very low. So it's a matter of choosing your battles. You can do the right things, provide all of these extra assets. What do they have? What don't they have? That's the question. Maybe they don't have a video. Maybe you could put a video on your content. Maybe you could pair that video with a PDF, like I said. What can you add to your content that makes it better than theirs? Maybe you could bring in a subject matter expert, some lawyers on your team to add their insights, to just make it more credible. But there are still many cases where you do all of this and the content still doesn't outrank that garbage content. So it's now on you to think about what was the goal of creating that content. It's for visibility, right? Is there somewhere else that you can take that content for it to show up? In my opinion, if it's something that is trending right now, or if it's something that can tie into what's relevant, you could repurpose that and jump on a podcast. Even if you have to pay to play, I don't care. You could look for Reddit threads where people are talking about that topic, provide some detailed information, and then link to your content so that it looks relevant. You start to think about how can you distribute this content outside of traditional SERPs so that you're not just relying on Google for that traffic. I don't want to be all doomsday and just say you do your best to move away. You do your best, but you also think outside of Google so that you're not just tied to organic for that visibility. But it's also a matter of choosing your battles at the end of the day, honestly.
You bring up an interesting point. I want to dive into this just a little bit more. When many people are looking at who is ranking above them, they are looking at what they are doing that your firm, your business is not doing. You're saying to flip that. You're saying, look at what they're doing and then find things that they're not doing that you can do to do better than they are. However, it still may not work, right? Google still may not reward it. And there's a litany of reasons why. And I think that the man behind the curtain controlling what ranks high and what doesn't rank high, no one will ever know what lever to pull and the reason why that specific site is ranking above you. But coming at it from that perspective of, I don't just want to match what they did because it's working and try and do it a little bit better. I want to find something completely different that they're not doing that I can do to make myself stand out ahead of them.
Yeah, yes, that's what I think that is going to be the future of search and visibility, because that builds affinity, right? If you do the same thing that everybody is doing, you just contribute to the noise. All of that noise is going to be surfaced on AI overviews and LLMs. You're literally contributing to them, just feeding off your content and not sending you traffic. If I can get that answer on AI overviews, why should I come to your website? Except I'm specifically looking for a lawyer. But if you add something else that LLMs cannot surface, then you have an edge. That's why I said the PDF. That's why I said maybe a video. Think about anything at all that you can provide that your competitors have not done to give you that edge and make your content more authoritative. That is what you should be doing. You can't just stop at saying, what are my competitors doing that I should do? No. What have they not done that I can do that is going to help the person reading this content feel like if I have gotten all the answers I need and I don't need to go back on SERPs and do another search?
I have a quick question for you. So living in the world of content marketing and having deep expertise in that, what is your advice to firms, to agencies, to SEOs, to marketers who, content has been king forever, has always been the thing, but now we have this new shift where AI content is flooding the market. And what is your recommendations to people on whether they should be writing with AI, not using AI, how to compete against competitors for putting out a ton of pages? Just from a content marketing perspective, what is the content strategy from a organic content perspective moving forward that you have recommendations on?
I would say, first of all, you need to start thinking more diverse. We are literally, if I may use this word, tied to the teethers of Google SERPs. That is the only way to describe it. Tied to the teethers of Google SERP. We need to remove our mindset from that and start to think more full funnel. If not, we're not going to survive how search is going to keep changing. Keep changing in the sense of all of these AI features eating even more into clicks. That's the first step. Second step, you need to make Affinity your new North Star. Affinity in the sense of how do I create content that brings people directly to my websites and makes my brand a habit based on recognition versus trying to compete with 10 other brands on SERPs and also competing with AI overviews. So a lot of that is thinking outside the box. What is going on in the industry right now in terms of legal, like that people are talking about? What is trending right now? You know, a lot of that kind of conversation is happening on Reddit, but it's mostly happening on social. If you create your own op-ed as a lawyer on that, you publish it on your website, you write about it on your LinkedIn, you make a short TikTok video on that, you find a podcast that will feature you because they are trying to get into that conversation. You maybe do a webinar to guide people on how to navigate something like that if it ever happens to them. You play into trends. Trends are a great way to really build affinity. You do all of that stuff and you start to see that you're not just getting traffic from organic anymore. Your traffic now becomes more direct. That's something that's actually happening with us at Moz right now. A lot of the content we are creating, even though it's targeting some keywords, is not ranking, but these are our best performing pieces in this year so far. Best performing in terms of traffic that has nothing to do with organic and everything to do with people finding this content being shared on social media, being shared on TikTok and all these other places, on email newsletter, people talking about it, and then other people coming to find that content because we are tapping into conversations that is happening right now. For example, when the whole SEO is dead thing was going on LinkedIn, I immediately wrote a thought leadership piece on that. When John Alderson published his post on, there was a post he published that went kind of viral. That was when I did my own take on the should we stop creating informational content. Think about it in legal mindset right now. I don't want to use an example because there's always something going on in legal with a celebrity, with something in the news. How do you create a conversation that is something that nobody else has said, but they should be thinking about? If you're able to get people to think differently from what everybody else is saying, that's affinity right there. Then they want to go and Google your name. And then they Google your name and they find your website. And then they want to see more of the stuff that you're written. But if you share that, for example, in a Reddit thread, I've seen people that have driven like 10K, 20K clicks from writing a very relevant answer to a Reddit thread and then putting their link that was relevant to that discussion. So that's the second part. First part, like I said, unfuck your mind and remove yourself from Google status. Number two, start thinking about how you can create content that earns affinity and makes people remember your name. Because that is where we are heading towards with the future. If I go on SERPs today and I see a brand I know, I don't care what position they are in. I'm going to click on that brand, irrespective of position, because I trust them. That's who you want to be. That's the kind of content we need to start talking about with content marketers. But last question, when you talked about should we be using AI? Yes, we should. I use AI to write all the stuff you've seen me publish on LinkedIn, on the Moz blog.
No, Chima, don't say it so.
Yes, but hold on. There's a caveat. The problem is not AI in itself. The problem is how people use it. I've always said this. People expect AI to be the experts. That is where you always fall short. AI is not a thinker. I think that's the mistake people make. They expect it to be a thinker that can strategize. It is absolutely crap at strategizing, but it is great at execution. Execution in the sense of, say I want to create content now. I know what I want to write about. I can give it a rough outline. I can ask it to find where the gaps are. Help me structure this outline. It does that. I give it the bullet points of what I want to talk about. It already knows my voice because I've created a GPT that has trained it extensively on how to write like me. It creates the draft subsection by subsection, and I keep editing that draft until it gets to the point where it feels like my voice, and then it gets better with the output. But I never use the output in the content. I always tweak the output so that it feels like me. The more I keep doing this, the more it's able to get closer to what I'm looking for in terms of tone. But always is me tweaking it, is me telling it what I am going for, is me giving it examples and all the stuff. So even though I'm writing with AI, nobody can tell I'm writing with AI. People don't even believe me that the post on should we stop creating informational content, any of the thought leadership posts I've written, I wrote that with AI. And that's because it is still my voice. That's the important thing. It's still my thought leadership.
You wrote it, but you came up with the content and the concept is you.
Yes.
It's just helping you make it write the actual piece.
Yes, exactly.
It is your ghostwriter.
Thank you. That is the way to see it as. Is my ghostwriter and my editor. So that's the difference between everybody who's creating those AI-generated crap, is that they literally just use ChatGPT to create an outline, and then they ask ChatGPT to write the content in one go. I tell you this, ChatGPT is absolutely shit at writing content in one go. You literally need to write it subheading by H3s by H3s, and then you edit that H3 by H3 until that H3 is perfect before you move on to the next one. People are trying to automate this shit like that. It doesn't work that way.
I've read a lot about this, people trying to use AI to address complex situations. What I've seen work better, and it sounds like that mimics your process, is breaking down a larger process into smaller chunks and having the AI do that one little piece and iterate and iterate and iterate until it's done, and then you move on to the next step.
It's very good at writing in sections. Sections being like H3s, 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 and then you assemble the whole. But it is not good at doing a big task at once.
Question for you too. So I loved everything you said about the content strategy of thinking creatively and all the different strategies you can do. What I was thinking though is what you described is the exact opposite of every traditional SEO I've ever met. They've been content focused and technical SEO. It's like the two main pillars. There's link building and stuff like that, but they focus on what is the technical SEO stuff I can do and what is the content piece of it. And almost nothing that you said is related to any of those things on site. It's all offsite signals and being more like a holistic creative marketer. So how do you see the industry changing, or how do you see someone who's done SEO traditionally, as we know, to move to that role or that skill set? Because it's completely different.
I agree. And I, if I'm being honest with you, I think many people are going to struggle because many SEOs and content people do not know how to write original content. What many agencies feed back to their clients is a list of keywords and another list of keywords. Everything tends to be coming from the SERPs. But how many agencies will tell their clients, oh, what if we could create a research that would allow us to naturally attract links on, let's say, for example, 40% of people do not file a complaint or do not sue after this incident or that incident. Like, what are the big keywords that bring in the revenue? What are the research possibilities there? You know, this is creative thinking that ties to revenue and lead gen, but it just can't be keywords. Many people are going to struggle because they don't know how to think creatively outside the box.
So for example, I had an idea. So there's recent news that Taylor Swift was engaged. So if I was maybe a family lawyer, I can easily write an article or commentary about what all the celebrity prenups that I've written and what to look for in a celebrity prenup and how they're usually structured when super rich people get married, and give that commentary that's kind of tied to a common trending event, but also give commentary on something people might ask for because she has a whole ton more money than he does.
No, it's not even that. I think a better angle would be how do two rich people or two super rich people structure a prenup when they are getting married. In most relationships, is one person is richer. Travis is wealthy, you know. This is like a super rich wedding. Now people are going to be interested in that kind of thing. What does a prenup agreement look like when two super rich people are getting married? That would be an interesting article to write. And then imagine that you've just written the article. Okay, how do you distribute this? Go on Reddit. Look for all those threads where people are talking about Taylor Swift and this engagement. Everybody's talking about it. Make a TikTok video. It's going to trend because it's relevant right now. Go on LinkedIn. Maybe make a post about how people don't think about prenups. And maybe there's a data to show how many people don't sign prenups. That's going to be interesting. You just have to be very creative in how you decide to distribute that. But if you create that kind of content and it's relevant right now, you're going to get the clicks because people are searching for that kind of information. And it will just pop up also on Google Discover. which is another great source of information.
Aside from individuals having to shift their mindset from traditional content or technical-led SEO to this new way of thinking, how are businesses who rely on agencies that they have hired to do SEO supposed to evaluate whether or not their SEO agency is the right fit for them to be able to now expand into this broader marketing execution and strategy, or if they need to make a pivot in what they're doing from a vendor perspective?
You're just trying to be polite and not call them snake oil salesmen. You're in a safe space, John. You're in a safe space.
Well, there are really good SEO agencies that I think are doubling down on SEO and are not thinking like you're telling people to think, right? And that may work for some, but for others, they do need to evolve. Those don't have to be snake oil salesmen. There are legitimate SEO agencies. We could talk about the snake oil salesman in a second, but what I'm saying is, even if you have a good SEO agency, how can a law firm look at that agency and say, can they do the things that Chima just told me I need to be doing from today moving forward?
They will usually have digital PR. That's the first sign for me. Because if they are being serious about evolving from that traditional SEO, they will 100% have digital PR baked into their services, because it is important for citations, it's important for getting those mentions, it's important for visibility, period. For me, that's the first clue. If it's just a traditional agency that is still doing the same old shit, they are not going to have digital PR. But if it is an agency that is seeing this trend and how it's shifting, and they're serious about helping their clients, the first clue is going to be that they will have digital PR baked in as part of what they are offering their clients, knowing fully well that if you're talking about AI visibility, then you need mentions and you need all these other things that you can mostly get through digital PR. Digital PR is also that creative element that I've been talking about. All this research stuff, all this jumping on trends and creating that type of content, digital PR is going to also help with that. So that, for me, is the link that moves you from just doing technical SEO, keyword research, and all those traditional contents to doing what I think is the next level of not just creating helpful content that can get that visibility, but also showing up in the places that matter. That's the first sign. The second sign is that they're going to be reporting on AI visibility. If they're doing SEO right and you're trying to assess if this is an agency you want to keep working with, are they already doing anything to help you get more visibility in LLMs? If they are not, then you probably need to reassess it, because you can see that trend is already here. It's not even a trend anymore. It's a reality. They 10,000% need to be tracking your AI visibility, need to be reporting on what they are doing to improve your visibilities in LLM, and also the type of queries that are driving that visibility, because you want it to be queries that lead to revenue. Everything has to come back, in my opinion, to brand awareness, to leads, and to revenue.
Two clarifications here. On the digital PR side, can you define digital PR for those who are watching who just think of it as traditional link building or link placements or guest posts?
This is a very good question. I think it's all the activities that you do to get more mentions and visibility on third-party websites. A lot of digital PR is not stuff that's happening on your website. It's stuff that's happening on third-party websites. So, for example, when there's a trend, digital PR can help you quickly respond to that trend with content that will go on a media publication like a news website or things like that. They can help you find opportunities to jump on a podcast and share your opinion on that trend, because many podcasts will be looking for guests for something like that. They can help you jump on the conversations on Reddit and things like that. Basically, all of the things that you would not be thinking about with traditional PR. When I think of traditional PR, I just think about all of the announcements that they make on places like Yahoo and the rest of them, and they just put, you've done this, boring stuff that, if we're being honest, doesn't really get traffic or doesn't really drive any engagement. Digital PR is the opposite of that. It's more engaging, it's reactive, but it's also a lot of planning to prepare for what could come. I think it's just more fun and it's just more engaging and it drives more results, in my opinion.
The more and more I listen to you, I couldn't agree more with your stance on digital PR and just how to be creative in the space. I almost see a new role coming into the SEO world where there's always been like content SEOs, they're like, hey, I have a great content background. There's always been like technical SEOs who are good with content, but they really love nerding out on the technical aspects. But I think there's a new role for like creative SEO for digital PR and just thinking creatively to get those engagements where a lot of SEOs are not the creative marketer types. You usually see creative marketers more on the paid side, where it's, TV advertising, social media advertising, where you have people that are very creative as focus, where this is a new opportunity for creatives to come into the SEO space to evolve the strategy from where it is today.
I agree. I was even just saying, I think I was going to make a post about this, that we are going to need people who think like storytellers, because a lot of the content is going to feel like storytelling that ends affinity, storytelling that is still tied to revenue, but it has to feel like storytelling. As people who are storytellers are also creatives, because you have to be a creative to be a storyteller, to even think about all those ideas. So I agree with what you just said, because literally that's the stuff I've been thinking about, that the next generation of content folks are going to have to be storytellers who can think outside the box, outside of traditional keywords, who can jump on all of these trends and create content that nobody else is doing, to build affinity more than anything else.
Love it. I love it. I want to follow up on your comment about tracking AI visibility. This is something that a lot struggle with, because every time someone prompts, they're going to get a unique response from an LLM.
Yeah.
How do you recommend business owners and SEOs appropriately track AI visibility?
I don't even think there is one way to do that right now, because like you said, you have to assume that every keyword has a search volume of 1, because no two people are typing the same thing in ChatGPT or any of these LLMs, because of how we are literally using it like a conversation. But what a lot of the AI trackers are doing right now is that they can aggregate the searches that have similar intents and combine that to show you what people are searching for that relates to your brand. That can be a great way to assess what type of queries to be optimizing for and things like that. But I think the most straightforward way, if you set this up in GA4, you can see referral traffic from ChatGPT and from all of these other places. And that gives you like an overview of how much traffic you're getting from these LLMs and how much result is driving. But if you want to then get granular, that's when you now start using the AI trackers that can aggregate the searches that relate to your brand and then show you potential searches for that. And also how you are appearing, one, and the sentiment around the responses that are being generated on that, because that's also important. You want to make sure that the sentiment, they are representing you correctly and the answers are representative of your brand.
We've been tracking it very granularly from every, whether it's ChatGPT referring us to traffic. We don't know down to the keyword level exactly what it is. But for example, it's usually a pretty specific page that it went to, so we know what it's going for. And we're tracking that attribution all the way down to the signed case. So we can say, hey, this person came from ChatGPT, they landed on the Memphis car accident lawyer page, they filled out the form there, and then we signed them up. So we have an idea that that chat in ChatGPT was related to somewhere in the universe of this. We usually do manual searches too on Google to see what the AI overview is showing, but sometimes in ChatGPT to double check it, but that's our best guess for now.
Yeah, that's actually a smart way. I also think that it's also a good way to analyze which pages are these LLMs sending the most traffic to, so that you can optimize the hell out of those pages to make sure that whatever is coming through, those pages are designed to convert those leads.
It's one thing to track the clicks to your site. It's another thing to analyze the pages that are getting hit by the LLMs as they're crawling your site. So looking at your server log files and actually seeing which pages are the LLMs constantly coming back and crawling, that means that those pages are important. You may not be getting a citation, but your content is being pulled into some response somewhere if it's constantly being recrawled.
That's a good tip.
It's a very technical way to do this, but you pull all that data out and then you can actually run it through an LLM to give you the pages that are actually being surfaced. So there are ways to do this more than just looking at the pages that are actually getting the clicks. You can look and do the manual checks like you guys were talking about, or even get more technical with it. Chima, knowing that we're talking today mostly about the impact of all of these SEO and AI changes and branding changes around law firms, what is something outside of the legal industry, we're going to put you on the spot here, that you see being really effective right now in taking advantage of the current SEO AI transition that maybe law firm owners and marketers can think about applying into the legal space?
I think for me, the thing I've seen that has been very effective has to be contributing to social commentary based on what's happening right now. if you think about it from what you're trying to get, right? Citations, mentions, all that stuff. What's the fastest way to get it? The fastest way to get it is, they said media mentions, right? But how do you get on those media mentions? A lot of the time is through contributing to trending topics. I've seen this be very, very effective, but it also requires you to stay in the loop and understand what is going on right now that I can contribute to, that I feel very confident to write about. If you can do that, and then you even have like your agency, figure out a way to distribute that on Reddit, figure out a way to quickly get you on a podcast, figure out a way to show you how to make a TikTok video, just something that allows you to just chop this up. The more you do this, the more you earn affinity, because the more you're going to get people that are finding you when they are looking at this type of content. I keep saying affinity because I really see this as the way to make your brand memorable. So if you do all of this stuff that has to do with trends, that's one way. If you do research is another way. Look at the keywords that you are targeting, the ones that are your big money makers. What are some ways that you can do a simple research on that? If you're able to do something that is low lift and then figure out a way to distribute that and get it featured in the media, that's another great way to earn those mentions and to bring that traffic. But again, it has to be tied to keywords that would drive commercial or transactional keywords. I think another way is, if you're a small business, if you're a small legal firm, you're trying to get active, you have other lawyers in your firm. Something that I've been seeing a lot of brands do that be very effective is getting all their teams to start being active on social media. LinkedIn specifically, start getting active on social media, start creating content on TikTok. Most of the people who would be reaching out to attorneys, ordinary everyday people, where are they consuming content? A lot of the time they're on Reddit, they're on TikTok, they're on social media. How do you get your teams to start creating content and building their own thought leadership? The more they can do that, it's going to feed into your brand. And then your brand is also going to borrow authority into their brand. So it's your team doing this work to build their thought leadership, to get their content out there. And then you doing the work on the brand side to also get your brand out there. There are lots of stuff you can do that, in my opinion, feels like easy lift, but requires you to have like someone who is doing digital PR to make sure that you're maximizing the reach of this content. And you're always like right there when something is happening. That's how you show that relevance as a small brand that has, I don't want to say limited budget, but that is trying to like get revenue from all of these activities.
It takes the position of these agencies or these companies from traditionally being very reactive from an SEO perspective to being extremely proactive with their content and their strategies and being willing to change at any time.
Yes, that's it. That's literally, those agencies need to start thinking about themselves like lawyers. They need to be in the know about what are lawyers talking about, what are people talking about. Their feed needs to be dominated with that kind of content so that they are aware the moment a new conversation shift is happening. That's their job, actually. Their job is to bring you that so that you can create the content as a SME. And then they take that content and they figure out, how do we get you on a podcast? How do we get you doing a TikTok? How do we get you jumping into what's happening right now so that you can spread your authority? That's actually their job. And if they are not doing that for you, then they're not doing enough, in my opinion. Again, that is where the digital PR angle comes in.
I feel like we could sit here and talk to you for hours and continue to pull out useful nuggets of information that people can apply. But unfortunately, our time with you is ending. And I want to thank you so much. This has been such an amazing conversation with real actionable items that lawyers can take away from. Chima, we will talk to you very soon. Follow Chima on the Moz blog. Follow her on LinkedIn. She is very funny. And if you're looking for a cause to support as the year comes to a close, take a look at the FCDC. They do great work. Chima heads up an amazing organization that does great work across the world, supporting those in developing countries who are focused on all types of technical work in the marketing space.
Thank you so much, Jon and Marc, for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I love this conversation.